I'm Steffanie Rivers, and I want justice. The police officers involved showed reckless disregard. Hello and welcome to the video version of my journal. I'm Steffanie Rivers. Come on into the conversation. You're watching me on one of a few platforms because I am multicasting on Facebook and YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn, a number of platforms. So on whatever platform you're watching, welcome to the conversation. If you are new, we want to welcome you and ask you to like, share, and subscribe so that when I post new videos, you'll be the first to know. And if you are returning, thanks for your support. So a few days ago, the funeral of Tyre Nichols was held in Memphis just days after the release of those videos that showed the Memphis cops giving him the deadly beatdown. They ended up ending his life. But it turns out that is just the beginning of the story. Now, the Shelby County District Attorney's Office, the prosecutor's office, they said there is 20 more hours of video and audio that was not released to the public that is related to Nichols' beating and his murder. This video and audio, according to the DA's office, contains comments and the lies told by the cops amongst each other after the fact when Nichols was finally taken to the hospital by those EMTs, who since have been fired too, because it took them so long to get medical treatment to Nichols. Now, whether or not those extra 20 hours of video will be released to the public in parts or in whole, it's up to the city of Memphis to do that. So we might see it and we might never see it. Maybe we have to wait until the trial of those 5 cops. Now, since my last video, the white cop who tased Tyre Nichols at the initial traffic stop, he's been fired by the police department. So it makes 6 cops fired so far. And that cop's name is Preston Hemphill. And that's a picture of him. He was the cop whose cop cam video showed Nichols getting tased, and it showed the initial traffic stop. So that's Preston Nichols, the 6th cop to be fired. He hasn't been charged with anything so far. And there is also a 7th cop that is said to be under investigation, but his name is being kept a secret to the general public. Now, if you live in Memphis and you know, local people know more than the national public is allowed to know, just because we're of the proximity of those local residents. So if you live in Memphis and you know who this 7th cop is that is being protected, email me. My email address is info@StephanieRivers, my name, info@StephanieRivers.com, and we can help get the word out about it and find out why he's being protected. Now, if I had to guess, I would say that that 7th cop that's being protected is also a white dude. Now, why do I say that? Because you see what the police department and the DA's office did to the 5 black cops. They wasted no time cutting ties with them, charging them with 3 felonies, at least 3 felonies. That would be assault, kidnapping, and murder. And rightfully so, they were charged with these crimes because of what they did. It was so reckless and so senseless and so heinous. So, but it also proves another point that I have been making since I've been looking at these videos of cops using unjustified deadly force against Black people. And that is, when it comes to defending the indefensible, police unions always come to the rescue of white cops. They always do it. They come with some reason why it was justified, which we see our eyes and our ears tell us that it was not, but a police union, they come up with some stuff as to why cops need to be let off the hook. But when it's Black cops who get caught breaking the law in the line of duty, the police unions go radio silent. They don't have nothing to say. They act like they didn't even know what happened. These are not members of our union. It's just so glaring, the difference in how they are treated. We've heard nothing from the police union speaking up for these Black cops. Only attorneys that they've hired have spoken up for the Black cops. It will be interesting to see if the Memphis Police Union will come to the defense of Hemphill, since he has now been fired, and what they might say about that, or the other unknown cop who, if his identity turns out to be that he is a white person. Okay, now after the break, we'll get more into how these special units that were to blame for the members of that special unit, the Scorpion unit in Memphis. We'll get more into how they are formulated and who thought up this and who's supposed to be supervising them after this quick message. Hey, and welcome back to the show. I'm Steffanie Rivers. If you haven't already, be sure to like, share, and subscribe so that when I post new videos, you'll be the first to know. Now, let's talk about the Memphis police chief. Her name is Civl Davis. She was quick to terminate the 5 Black cops for the behavior that she saw on those videotapes, and rightfully so. That prevented the cops from hiding behind qualified immunity like so many cops get a chance to do. And that led to them getting charged like they should have been. Now, I'm okay with all of that. I just see the disparity between how crooked cops who are Black are treated versus crooked ass cops who are white are treated. Crooked ass cops should be treated the same regardless of if they're Black or white, whatever their race is. Then Davis disbanded the special Scorpion unit after that, like a week or so after that, under pressure, rightfully so. The 5 cops and the others were a part of that. But getting funding for special units seems to be Civl Davis's thing. Let's take a look at Civl Davis. This is a picture of Civl Davis, Police Chief Civl Davis in Memphis. Now, she has a history of going to different cities and starting special forces units. And so let's look at what Civl Davis did throughout her career and how that is affecting us in the individual communities. Now, when Davis was in Atlanta back in 2006-ish era, she supervised a special unit called the Red Dog Unit. And she also supervised that SWAT team and the narcotics team in Atlanta. So that was her thing. Let me start special units. Let me supervise them. So she's all about creating special forces and using taxpayers' money to create teams of bully cops. But how are these cops evaluated to see if they're even fit mentally, emotionally, to be on a special unit with little to no supervision? That's the question. Now, the members of the Atlanta Police Department Red Dog Unit, they were said to roll 4 or 5 deep in the neighborhoods, and they were known for pulling over, ambushing young black men and embarrassing them by pulling down their pants and doing cavity searches in public. And the city of Atlanta had to pay out millions of dollars in civil lawsuits because of unjustified use of force by these cops on this Red Dog unit before that special unit was disbanded. In fact, they were disbanded after 3 of the cops pleaded guilty to conspiracy to violate the civil rights of a woman that resulted in her death. She was 92 years old, a resident of Atlanta. Her name was Catherine Johnston. And what happened was they burst in her house looking for somebody that didn't live there. A shootout happened, and she got killed. And after that, those cops on that special Red Dog unit, they tried to cover it up. They tried to cover it up. And after an investigation, they found out that it was found out what they did, trying to cover it up, probably trying to blame her in her death for her death. And so they pleaded guilty to conspiracy to violate her civil rights, resulting in her death. And they were convicted and sentenced to prison. Some of them got a couple of years, some of them got 5 years. So they're probably, out by now. But that's what happened in Atlanta under the Red Dog unit that was under Civl Davis at the time. And so she was a corporal or something like that. She wasn't the chief, but she was a high ranking officer. Now in 2019, I'm going to show you just some different things that are happening across the country with these special units. In 2019, in Chicago, Anjanette Young was naked in her apartment, minding her own business, okay, when cops burst in searching for a man who didn't live there, who they were saying they were looking for somebody who had on an ankle bracelet. So had they just done whatever they do, tagged GPS his ankle bracelet, they would have seen that he was not even at that residence. He was up the street somewhere, but they broke in looking for him. She was there, had just gotten home from work. I think she was a nurse. She was naked, basically. They were recording her. They handcuffed her, walking around while this woman is butt naked in her house, talking about, we looking for so-and-so. And she's trying to tell them nobody like that lives here. And so in 2021, at the end of 2021, she got awarded a civil lawsuit of almost $4 million, $3 million, almost $3 million, a settlement from the city of Chicago. And we all know about Breonna Taylor in Louisville, Kentucky, who was killed by special forces cops from the Louisville Police Department in 2021 when they lied to get a search warrant to even go into her house to look for somebody who didn't live there, who had been arrested earlier in the day, and they ended up shooting and killing Breonna, and her family got a $12 million civil settlement from the city. So these special units often, in my opinion, they violate the civil rights of the citizens in the area, and all so they could say, oh, we did it, so we are trying to stop crime, when really they are not really stopping crime at all. In fact, they are shooting and killing people, innocent people, along the way. So if you haven't already, be sure to like, share, and subscribe so that when I post new videos, you'll be the first to know. So Civl Davis got fired from the Atlanta Police Department, not because of her Red Dog unit shooting and killing an innocent woman. She got fired from the police department in Atlanta because she allegedly allowed the husband of an Atlanta cop to go uninvestigated for a sex crime that the husband eventually pleaded guilty to when he got indicted on by a federal grand jury. Okay, so she was trying to cover up what her friend cop's husband was doing, and it got found out, and then they fired her, and then the dude ended up pleading guilty because he was guilty. You don't plead guilty to something like that if you ain't guilty. But anyway, he pleaded guilty and went to prison, and she got fired because she stopped the Atlanta local police from doing an investigation, and they picked it up federally. So yeah, that's why she got fired from Atlanta Police Department. But she what's the word? She appealed that case and got put back on the force, and she was reinstated later and rose up to be the deputy police chief in Atlanta before she got hired in Durham, North Carolina. So now she went to Durham, North Carolina between 2016 and 2021. Saralyn Davis was the police chief in Durham, North Carolina, and there she is again. So her thing is starting special forces units. But here's the thing, in Durham, they didn't really have that much high crime because it's a small area. Durham is surrounded by Chapel Hill and Raleigh. And so Durham on its own didn't have enough crime for her to create a special forces unit. So she moved on to Memphis because Memphis had one of the highest numbers of crime, records of crime in the United States for the size of its city. So at 2021, she becomes the police chief in Memphis, and she started, guess what? A special forces unit called Scorpion. So while still in Durham, Davis was one of the police chiefs that went and testified before Congress to talk about police reform. And during the time when the summer of 21, when everybody was protesting about George Floyd's murder, modern day lynching. That's what I was that term, modern day lynching of George Floyd. Saralyn Davis went before Congress talking about police reform and what needs to be done. And but still, her actions and her words are two different things. She talks about police reform, but she goes and sets up these special units that seem to do nothing but violate the civil rights of people in that city under the auspices of doing police work. Okay, so that's what we doing the same thing and expecting a different result is what we call insanity. So that's what she's been doing. Now, all, if not most, of the cops in that Scorpion unit in Memphis had less than a year and a half of experience being on the police force. And when they were approved to join the police force, that Scorpion force, special forces unit in 2021, she was new, the Scorpion unit was new, and the cops were new. So she didn't know them, they didn't know her. So my question would be, what evaluation is done before cops are allowed to join a special forces unit? It seems like they should have a certain amount of time on the force and have a certain amount of experience doing what it is that they want to do. And is Saralyn Davis, the police chief, was she trying to save her own reputation and career by dropping these Black cops like a bad habit and charging them, although it was justified? That's the fastest I've ever seen that done in all of the unjustified use of force by any cop anywhere in this country. They normally get to go home and go on leave and get paid while you investigate. And months later, they are found justified, or if they're not, it was months later that they had time to get themselves together to get ready for the termination. So you go from, it happened on the 7th of January, and the 10th of January is when Tyre Nichols died. And then by the 20th, so that's like 10 days, they go from investigation to termination to charging them. That's swift action, and I applaud the swift action. But let's look at why the swift action. Is she trying to save her own ass because she knows she's got a record of and some culpability in how they were acting because she didn't fully have them evaluated? Is that what really is going on? When it was her decision to start the unit to begin with, was she or was somebody else in charge of managing this group? Clearly, somebody should have been there with them on the ground that was a higher rank that could have, and maybe there was, and maybe that's who they are supposedly protecting. I don't know, but Memphis cops were used to getting away with questionable use of force because against Black people, let's say that, because the former district attorney who just got beat out by the current district attorney in a election, she never filed charges against any cop for any reason, even those who were clearly not following standard operating procedures for traffic stops or dealing with the general public and how they would operate to try to de-escalate a situation. In a recent case, there were 4 white cops who cut off their cop cams while they were in the middle of an issue with a Black motorist. And the 4 cops claimed that the guy tried to drive away and they ended up shooting him. But your cop cam was turned off, and that is against procedure. But even though 3 of them got fired and 1 of them quit, the DA didn't see where she needed to file any charges, but she found a reason to charge the guy who got shot. So she always found, this former DA in Shelby County, she always found a reason to charge everybody else, mostly Black people, but she never found a reason to charge cops, mostly white cops. So now there's a new DA on the scene, and things have changed. So these cops, they're not used to being held accountable. And, these Black cops, the ones who beat and killed Tyree Nichols, I can't tell you what was going on in their head, but I'm pretty sure based on the audio that we saw on the video that they thought they could talk their way out of whatever it was that they had done, because they were starting to come up with their own, oh, he was going for my gun. Oh, he was on something. Oh, did y'all see this? Well, did you see that? They just thought they could talk their way out of it, and it wasn't happening this time. And I'm glad to see that. So if your local law enforcement agency has a special forces unit, I would implore you to do your own research to find out more about that special forces unit, just to see, how are they operating? Is there anybody that they have arrested or has died during the course of them doing some type of undercover operation, breaking down people's doors, jumping them and stuff like that normally happens with a special units? Mostly they call them the SWAT team, but they might not be called SWAT in your area. So I would say check that out and see what is going on. Do special forces cops violate the civil rights of the people in that city? That is the question. And I would ask you to look at that. Now, there are a few rumors going around as to why the Special Forces unit, the Scorpion unit in Memphis, was out doing routine traffic stops to begin with, that led them to come in contact with Tyree Nichols in the first place. So that's the question. And that I don't want to voice the rumors, but what I am going to do is I'm going to Memphis and I'm going to see if I can get some people to talk about it on the record, so we can get to the bottom of it, because it did seem to be so violent and so like it was something personal about it. And when you see police investigations and they say this attack it wasn't just a normal altercation or, a happenstance beating that cops normally do to people. This seemed more personal for some strange reason. There have been people who've gotten away from yo tired, overweight, fat ass, cop ass before, and y'all didn't beat them. So it had to be more than the fact that Tyree Nichols, who was suffering from Crohn's disease, which is a digestive disease that keeps you from gaining a lot of weight because you can't really digest the food, so you don't really have an appetite, stuff like that. And he was agile. He got away from him. There's more to it than he just got away from you and you didn't get a chance to tase him. So there might be some connections going on with one of those cops that did the beating that I'm going to go see if somebody will talk to me about it. So I'm going to take a trip to Memphis, and I'll let you know what I find out. In the meantime, to find out more about the things that I care about, you can go to the written version of my journal. That's at eurweb.com. Thanks, and